Good evening, brothers and sisters of Beach Church, and welcome to a talk on Exodus 34 through 36. This is actually the section of the Bible where Moses is directed by the Lord to chisel out two new stones because he broke the other ones, which the Lord reminds him of several times directly, although there was, of course, no penalty from the Lord for Moses for having broken the first two tablets with the Ten Commandments on them. The reason being, it was done for a righteous reason. It was after seeing his stiff-necked brothers and sisters worshiping a calf, especially one that was made by his own brother, Aaron. So that is how we ended up with the two stones representing the Ten Commandments written on by God being not the originals. Wouldn't that be great? I don't know. I've been very into biblical archaeology lately. Wouldn't that be great if they actually did, in fact, find any part of any of the tablets that could be confirmed as being of the Ten Commandments? It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing what they found over the years, and even just recently, like in the past year, things that confirm so many things about what we read about in the Bible. And not just the Old Testament, New Testament too, stuff about Pontius Pilate and Herod and so forth. Anyway, let's talk about Exodus 34 to 36, if you don't mind. Okay, so there's just some points that I want to bring out. So I'm not going to go in any particular order or stick to the script here. But one thing is the Lord says, the Lord whose name is, let's start with that, the Lord, okay? God reveals his name, it says, as the Lord. Well, what kind of a name is that? It's a title. It's not a name. It's like Jesus, his last name was not Christ. It's Jesus the Christ, right? So it's Yahweh, the Lord, or Elohim, the Lord. So why does it say in so many places in the Old Testament, Lord? It's an intentional substitution based on a Jewish tradition. Of course, at that point, it wasn't even until the Book of Kings that the Israelis were there and after known as the Jewish people. But yeah, an intentional substitution rather than a translation of the Hebrew word Adonai, Lord, or Elohim, God. The substitution did have a reverent reason behind it, though. It's not like they just were being stiff-necked. It's to avoid violating the commandment against taking God's name in vain. A lot of people have questions about certain commandments. Another one is like graven image. Well, I don't, even if I would go back to doing painting, I don't represent Jesus's face. Of course, why get yourself into trouble over really something that could be very easily avoided? Just don't draw his face, that's all. Don't draw the face of Yahweh. And like a lot of times the AI will generate those images. But I try to avoid that too, because I'm doing a lot of videos and putting them out there about Bible commentary. Maybe you're watching one right now. I mean, this might be a future one, a segment of this video or numerous segments of this video. Anyway, so he says, the Lord whose name is jealous. So not Elohim and not Adonai, but jealous. So, of course, Oprah took that as her ticket out of worshiping and being fearful of the Lord by saying that she's not going to follow any Lord who is jealous. But that just shows her ignorance. And ignorance is one of the lighter accusations that I could lay upon Miss Winfrey. But that's besides the point. So the Lord tells Moses not to make treaties with the different ites, you know, that he will drive out before the Israelis come into the land, before his people occupy the land. Canna, Q-A-N-N-A, is the word for jealous, but what it really means is not jealous in terms of like coveting, you know, which would be God violating his own commandment, so we know that's not happening. So what is he saying? He's saying intense emotion, intense, passionate. Why wouldn't the all-powerful sovereign Lord who created emotion be very emotional? Of course, part of his characteristics is that he has the emotions that he created for us to experience. So intense, passionate zeal. I once heard that it just meant like being passionate, but intense, passionate zeal, fierce protectiveness, or a deep commitment to exclusive relationship. And that also plays into what I'll tell you later about the Sabbath and what God's talking about with regards to the Sabbath. So not the negative human sense of envy or resentment, but signifying God's zealous guarding of his covenant and his people from idolatry. Other translations highlight this as zealous or passionate, reflecting God's fervent care for what is rightfully his. So that's what I was saying. Okay. In Exodus 34, verses 6 and 7, God reveals his character. This section, 34 through 36 of Exodus, is all about the covenant, and it's all about God and his character. That's specifically brought out in a big way in this section. He reveals his character as merciful, but showing that he punishes persistent rebellion, idolatry, for instance, across generations. You've heard of generational curses, third or fourth generations. If my great-great-grandfather, I think that would translate too, did something that was not in keeping with the Lord, then I would still be paying for that. But it's not. It's one of the things that there's so much in here that is misunderstood about the Lord. The jealousy thing is another one. What he says later about the Sabbath, and also here where you have generational curses. But he also shows vast grace. People don't talk about that part, emphasizing that sin's consequences naturally affect families, but true freedom comes from turning to him, breaking the cycles through his abundant forgiveness, not just enduring the Father's sins. So the sins of the father are the sins of the sons, and that is true. But God gives a lot of leeway in terms of like having an out. If you don't worship Baal, if you're not idolizing symbols made out of wood and stone, and even gold, then you and you are fearful and loving of the Lord, then you won't have to. It won't apply. You will. The Lord will give you mercy. It's about the impact of inherited patterns and accountability. A certain family, like the Rothschilds and other families like that, have had certain ways of being and acting over long periods of time. So it's not arbitrary punishment. It's highlighting the Rockefellers, highlighting God's desire for relationship over ritual. Okay, so the Sabbath. Work on the Sabbath, get put to death. That really sounds harsh, don't you think? But it's really a severe penalty for willful defiance and breach of God's covenant with his people, which carries deeper symbolic meaning. The Sabbath was a sign between God and Israel, separating them from other nations. Breaking it was seen as equivalent to tearing up the contract, of their relationship with God. Oh, by the way, also in this is the construction of the veil that separated the Holy of Holies, which was 6 inches thick. That's a lot of fabric. 6 inches thick. So you can imagine the noise that it made when, after Jesus died on the cross, it was split down the middle. Exodus 34 records the renewal of the covenant after the golden calf incident. The strictness, likely of the apparent strictness of generational curses and work on the Sabbath and face death. That's likely due to a major apostasy, which the Israelis had committed. In summary, the penalty for working on the Sabbath was seen as the ultimate defiance of God's covenant, showing a lack of trust and reverence. It was not just about doing work, but about what that work represented, an intentional rejection of God's authority and provision. There are other things in Exodus 36, which are directives from God, which also seem kind of harsh. But not working on the Sabbath, especially during harvest time, when there were a lot of crops out there that needed to be brought in, might seem harsh, but actually God will provide, Jehovah Jireh. And this is just a reminder of that, to not depend upon your own abilities and so forth, but to depend on the Lord. Um, and that's what I got. There's so much more. Oh, also, it starts sounding a little bit Levitical here in the way that the Lord is being very, very micromanaged, very, very, very precise about every little detail about how to create these things, the veil and so forth. And the thing to realize about that is, I mean, one way to look at it so that it doesn't seem just harsh, um, that he's being so didactic and so strong about such minuscule little things, is because it actually shows how much that he cares and how much that he wants to be involved in our lives, that he would go into such great detail. So you can read it like, oh my goodness, why am I reading all these details? And you can just read it in like this, um, just this absolute joy that we have a Lord that cares that much about his people. That's an alternative for you. All right, that's all I got. Have a great week and see you soon. Be blessed.